Hey, also, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that has an impact on your business and on your personal and family's financial status, okay? And it's this. We've been talking about the changing world order. And again, this is not a fear-mongering thing, but let me just explain something that's developing that is literally going to impact your life. Okay, so that is this. The United States as a policy has run a trade deficit since the 1980s. Why does this matter? Well, here's the reason why it matters. We can think of this easily in terms of a person's finances, right? If they make money and they spend money and they make more money than they spend, then their bank account grows. Okay, but if they spend more money than they are making, their bank account shrinks, right? And so that's kind of the savings in their bank account. How does this work for countries? Well, countries don't make income and spend income, not the way that individuals do, but the way it happens between countries is known as trade deficits or trade surpluses, right? They export stuff and they import stuff, okay? And so it's really, really good when they export stuff. It helps grow the wealth of the country, okay? And so during the leading up to 1945, when the United States became the dominant power, it ran an enormous export business, right? The United States was this somewhat of a huge island, isolated from the countries during World War I and World War II for the most part, and so they just exported a lot of goods to countries that needed them in support of the war, and so they became very wealthy. Well, in the 1980s, we began running a trade deficit. Basically, that means that we're still exporting and we're importing stuff, but we're importing more than we're exporting, and we've ran that deficit in a huge way, even throughout the 90s and early 2000s, to the point where we've, at this point, run an enormous, huge net deficit. So over that time, our country's wealth, or country's bank account, you could say, has been diminished as we've run this deficit. Now, why does this matter? What does this mean, right? This is what that means. So it's not necessarily bad on its own to run a deficit or a surplus. It just means that it can put you in a vulnerable spot. Now, if you look at the reserve value of different countries, the United States used to lead the world. It is now in second place, and it's in second place to China. China's reserve status is about 6 times the amount as the United States, which means in one way, in a very crude way of measuring, you could think of China as a nation as 6 times richer than the United States. And then the United States still towers above everyone else, but still, we have this enormous rival. Now, what does the U.S. have that they hold over China? Well, one thing that they hold over China is that we can still print the world's reserve currency. We still print the US dollar. We have total control over that, and every other country, the value of their currency is tied some way to the US dollar, right? Not every country, but we've talked about this before, okay? Now, and so having an enormous trade deficit puts a country in a very vulnerable spot. However, we still have what economically is the greatest economic power in the world, which is that we get to print the US dollar. We're the only ones that can do that. Okay, but if that were to change, if there was a shakeup in the world order to make a different currency because of its stability and because it can be backed up with stronger financials, or for whatever reason, if there was a shift in how the world currency is managed and that transitions to somebody else, that would leave the United States, and by extension you and your business, in a very vulnerable position. Okay, and so we're getting to this spot where I'm going to release some videos. They're coming up, so watch for them. Please subscribe, add this to the alerts, right? And the videos are going to be talking about what do you need to do as a business owner or as an individual, right? Thinking of your finances and your investments and things. What do you need to do to protect your business and your personal life in the event that we lose our reserve currency status, right? Again, that's an extremely vulnerable position to be in. The recipe is there. to have a change in power. And so watch for the videos. They're going to be coming out very soon, talking about how businesses need to shift to make sure that you are in the best possible spot. So thanks for tuning in.